Hello and welcome to the We Are Power podcast live from our We Are Power studio. Every week I get the opportunity to speak to some of the most amazing individuals in and from across the whole of the UK, and lots of cracking northerners as well. That's what we love. People from different paths, different adventures, different stories, and we bring them together so we can pass on some of those top tips, guidance, tote bag moments, slogans on t-shirts, you name it. That's what we're trying to check. And today I am delighted to be joined by Kelly Whitfield, who is the founder and CEO of KLIK UK. I can see that in your background there, Kelly. Kelly is a businesswoman, entrepreneur, director, media personality, mentor with over 20 years experience in, to name but a few, policing, recruitment, human resources, technology. Get it all in one basket there, Kelly. Welcome to the pod.
Absolute pleasure to be here. Delighted to be here. And I think I need to lie down after that. My goodness. Yes, I've got a fair few strings to my bow, shall we say.
You are on one heck of an adventure, and you have, as a serial entrepreneur, founded multiple companies, including Adapt, MVB, Freeport, and KLIK SAS. I was going to say, and I decided to spell it out, but it's all good. What are the key ingredients to launching and growing successful businesses in today's, because it's super competitive out there?
Oh, yeah, it is. And I think competitive's the key word. Let's focus on that. I always look at the need to stand out. I think it's so important to differentiate yourself in a competitive market. So with my first business, Simona, back in 2006, when I incorporated Adapt, I needed it to be better. And I started that business with a 500 quid overdraft. And I paid somebody 50 quid to draw me the best, most professional logo that I could get at the time. And I put an advert in the Yellow Pages, if you can remember that.
Wow.
If you can't, everybody look it up. But that's pretty much all we had back then. And, I made a genius move of describing my business as deliberately different with 2 capital Ds. And it was my way of saying, I'm not like them. What we do and how I work is deliberately different from what they do. And I think that's the key thing. Starting in a competitive market is you've got to differentiate yourself. And then once you've perfected what it is that you do, I think then you need to innovate. You need to constantly try and stay, not necessarily one step ahead of the competitors, by the way. I always had half an eye on my competition, but I never wasted time on them. So I always wanted to stay one step ahead of myself. But yes, that's the key, is to differentiate and then to continuously innovate and improve.
How do you not get distracted? Sometimes I think you can get distracted by the sirens, by what are they doing? Are they doing it better or whatever? So how do you not do that? How do you not get caught in being caught over there by the sirens?
Do you know what? So I know we're going to have we're going to have a good discussion today around other ideas, and some of that good stuff I want to bring in a little bit later. But being distracted by the sirens, you've got to be aware of them. But if you're too busy looking at the ambulances whizzing past with the sirens and the blue lights, you're taking your eyes off your own steering wheel. Keep looking forward, perfect what you are doing, and aim to be the best at that. That's my advice on that one.
And we talk a lot about role models and people who inspire you along the way. And you have 3 very different people out there. So Coco Chanel, Daniel Priestley, and Simon Sinek. Why? How would you say are the differentiating pieces that inspire you?
Do you know what? So Coco Chanel's an unusual one because I actually don't have a closet full of her stuff. I'm a mom. If I did, it would be ruined. My youngest boy's 5 and I'm a rugby mom. So I don't know whether many people know, but she had a pretty tough start. I think her mum died when she was relatively young and her dad just basically abandoned her. And I think when you look at her, she was above all else rebellious. And I don't know whether I'm a self-confessed underdog. I had a pretty tough upbringing, and I champion underdogs, and I want the Seabiscuits to win. If ever you've seen that, that was a racehorse that was taught to lose, and then somebody enabled him to win, and goodness me, did he? So Coco Chanel, she was rebellious. She was incredibly creative. In those days, women were confined by their clothes, and she brought comfort into it. I remember reading something. Clearly, I've read something about her. And, black, when you think she was born 1880s, something like that. And, black was used for mourning then. You think of, Victoria. And she made black chic, and we all have dresses in our closets because of her. And also, one thing that I really do like is she was really controversial. She applied menswear to women's wear. So then women were wearing two-piece suits, you can go to the loo, you were comfortable. I just really like that. Now, the other one, Daniel Priestley, I like him because he's like me. I'm very linear. I like process. I like things to be clean and lean and efficient. I like things to work. And he's very much of that mindset. And I think Simon Sinek is why, if you've ever heard his TED talk, he talks about a lot of businesses know what they do, but not everybody knows why they do it. And I think I remember watching that talk, and it really sort of said something to me, because I think I'm always steered by the want and the will to do good and do better. And Simon Sinek bringing why into it, I think that's quite powerful. And I think a lot of businesses and a lot of entrepreneurs and managers and leaders, even if it's not their own business, could probably do good to sit down and just think, right, okay, so I know how we do what we do, and I know, I know what it is that we do, but why do we do it? And then communicate that.
And that goes back to your needing to stand out, doesn't it? Goes back to some of that.
I get bored easily.
If we go forward now to KLIK, and this business now is all about helping businesses to focus in on connecting and collaborating, which I love, and also to stay competitive when attracting talent. What advice would you throw out there to business leaders who are struggling to hire and retain, actually, more importantly, in this, this fast-moving market right now?
Yeah, so the first thing I would say, and I'm going to be careful when I say what I'm about to say. I'm saying it from the perspective of a previous recruitment entrepreneur who had a specialist search and recruitment firms that then evolved, by the way. So we talked about differentiating and then innovating. So my business back in 2012 innovated. And we then partnered with a company in Silicon Valley. We were providing recruitment, employee engagement, then retention initiatives, which is what enabled me to retire at 42, by the way. And I think my advice with those hats on is for employees to take recruitment in-house. And I've been asked to write a book and around this subject. And in my head, I've got this working title of being fit to compete. And when I talk and think about being fit to compete, it's to encourage employees to say, right, hang on a second, let's just take a step back. If we were going to offer somebody a job and they had another offer, why would they accept ours? What's it like to work here? What can we offer outside of money? And by the way, employers, it isn't just about money. I've been a board advisor for quite a few years, and I remember being helicoptered into a board to enable that business to scale from 16 to over 100 people quite quickly in the UK, and then to set up a second operation overseas in Australia. And I knew that significant and rapid scale would dilute that culture, but I also knew we were going to have a challenge in recruiting people, because we were headhunting from oil and gas and asking people to come and work in a business in Teesside in an office. And everybody knows oil and gas pays a handsome salary. So I remember saying to their then advisors and accountants, what else can I promote other than money? And I ended up working with their accountants, and we put together a flexible benefits scheme that enabled people, instead of working overtime and it being lost, they counted it and they got an extra day off each month. Then we had compressed working week schemes and flexible working so they could pick up and drop off. So then I was able to say to our consultants, when you are talking to a candidate, say to them, look, we're not going to be able to really compete with your salary. However, you can sleep in your own bed, you can drop your children off and pick them up, and you can get up to 12 additional days holiday a year just from doing a bit of overtime. And they loved it. So take recruitment in-house. have a look at what it's like to work for your organization. What's your culture like? Do employee engagement initiatives. Are people happy? Take the feedback that they give you, because that is absolute diamond gold dust advice on how you can create a better place to work within your business. That would be my top things.
And what's another piece of advice while we're seeking some of that out? You've worked in many different industries that we talked about, but to women particularly stepping in or stepping back into industries where they may feel they're, outnumbered or overlooked. What's your one piece of advice?
Oh, now this one makes me want to rattle cages and kick shins, because I am a woman, and I shout louder, I stand taller, I push harder. I remember being a police lady. I was independently policed when I was 19, and my sergeant, I forget his name, he said to me, "Kelly, knowledge is confidence." He said, if you learn all of your legislation and all what we used to call points to prove around all the different bits of legislation that we used to have to memorize, you can go out onto that street and you can deal with absolutely any situation that can come up. As in, if somebody walks past me, Simona, with a handful of pheasants and a shotgun over their arm, I need to know whether I can lock them up or not. So knowledge is confidence. And I think if you know your stuff, and I make it my purpose and my mission to know my stuff, I think you can enter a male-dominated industry. I've done police and I've done tech and I've done recruitment, as you say. And you can stand your ground. I do not, and I will not play golf. I'm not interested. So if there are deals being done on the golf course, I'm going to miss out. That annoys me. But, I remember hearing a story once, I think it was actually Daniel Priestley, where there's 100 people in a room and there's an auction. And this guy on the stage is offering, a one-to-one, some of his time to the highest bidder. Out of those 100 people, only 2 people were competing with each other. And that drove the price up. You don't need to promote yourself to the 100 people in the room. Just find the 2 that want you. Let them do the deals on the golf course. Who bloody wants it anyway?
Now, one of the best bits of advice I read about you is that you received was the value of extra work by itemizing and invoicing discretionary effort at zero cost to highlight the value. Talk to me about that, because this is something I know, particularly, not wanting to just solo focus on female founders, but this happens a lot, doesn't it? Just do it for free. Just do it for free. You'll get lots of exposure.
Yeah. So, yes, that is true. I think my take on this was a long time ago that I got this. This was within probably the first 2 or 3 years of Adept. So it'll have been 20 years ago. And back then, when you're starting out, let's focus on that. You do things for love, and you provide what I call discretionary effort. You go above and beyond. And that's all well and good when you're winning business and you want to take care of your client. But it's incredibly difficult, as you know, Simona, to maintain as you scale. And the problem then is, if you've done something for free and then all of a sudden you can no longer do it, that's a difficult bridge to cross. So my advice is, when you're doing the small things or the big things for love, whether it's traveling or whether it's attending a meeting or whether it's staying, it depends on how you, it depends on how you itemize and you invoice for your business. But if it is something that you can put on an invoice to say, I attended this meeting, 2 hours, and just enter a zero free, just put complimentary. The fact that when they're looking at it, it's seen, it's recognized, it's appreciated, and also it would make me feel good if I was looking at an invoice to pay for one of my suppliers and there was a few little gestures on there. I would think, nice one, guys. And then when it comes to building your business and scaling and, looking at who you award more work to, you go to the people that make you feel good, that you value and they value you. So yeah, that's my advice on that one.
Love that. And you said you got that many years ago, so that stayed with you, right? You've got over 20 years of industry and entrepreneurial experience. What do you think are those kind of real top qualities that you need to thrive and grow through entrepreneurship and leadership?
I think you need to be fearless. I think you need to be incredibly flexible. I think if you're starting out in business now, you've got to pick one thing and be good at it. I delivered a talk actually for the first time ever on this particular subject at something called NetFest a couple of days ago. You might have seen it. And there was a lot of startups or, budding entrepreneurs in the room. And I said to them, look, just focus on one thing. And just if all you're going to do is do the same as many others, as in competitive saturated market, as we've talked about in the first question you asked me, just do it better. Just whatever it is. If you're selling shoes, sell shoes better than your competitors. Put something in the bag with the shoes that makes them feel good. And I think you need to be very driven to be good at the one thing that you do, but also be prepared to fail and fail quickly and ideally inexpensively. So when I was coming up with the idea of KLIK, before it was even called KLIK, I built a prototype, an inexpensive prototype on a different platform than what the final product was. And that was my MVP, my minimum viable product. Took that to market and tested it over a good period, got some phenomenal feedback. And we knew at that point, actually, yeah, we can put our, an element of our children's inheritance into this and be confident of the outcome because people liked it. But I don't believe in failure. I believe in feedback. I don't think you failed to invent the light bulb. You've just found another way that doesn't work.
I love this. I can't even, I'm running out of pages to write down these tote bag quotes on. And there's not enough t-shirts out there. Looking back.
I'm from Teesside, we talk quickly.
Looking back, what is the one challenge that actually has helped shape you? And how did you kind of batter it down?
Right, this is a good one. This is a controversial one. And I'm gonna share something with you that I've got to be careful sharing. So it's a bit of an exclusive, but it's not something I've spoken about openly. But I do think it's something that should be shared. So to put it bluntly, I was pregnant, then screwed. And I don't know if you've heard of that website.
We know Jolie.
Brilliant. Absolutely fantastic. So I actually co-founded a business with some nameless men. And the business was phenomenal. It was fantastic up until the very last board meeting that again was recorded, phenomenal and fantastic. And it was until we got to the any of the business bit and I said, I need time off. And I asked for about 4 weeks off. And when I eventually told them that, I was expecting my third son, and I knew at that point that was it. We were done. We were finished. We were over. And, not to be serious and not to be downbeat about it, because actually it's the best thing that ever happened. But sure enough, that was probably the most challenging thing I've ever gone through. We did go to court. And stupidly, those individuals had used our company email to communicate on how to trump maternity pay. How can we make her look incompetent? I've never made a solvent business look insolvent, but I'm sure it can be done. And long story short, it did go to court and I did win. So, it was one for the ladies on that one. And what was really phenomenal about that was we actually had staff. I walked into the offices and said to everybody, and they knew at that point I was heavily pregnant. I said, look, I love you all, but I'm never ever going to come back to this business. I'm going to personally guarantee all your salaries. I will help you. I will support you until you're settled and you've moved on. And what was ironic, that business ran for quite a long time, didn't need a single penny from me. And it was only when the last wonderful person was happily reappointed, I went in, locked the door, took the money out of the business as you would expect, because at that point I was 100% shareholder, sat down and came up with the idea of KLIK. And it took me to go through all of that to then be sufficiently motivated and to have the time and the clarity to think, you know what I want to do? I don't want to go back into business. I want to have a digital asset. I want to create a machine that generates reoccurring revenue, that makes money while I sleep. And then I want to offer that technology to other people so that they can license it, so that they too can have a reoccurring revenue asset. And that's what I've done. So thanks, guys, by the way. That's the first time I've thought that, but I think it's a good one to share.
I love that. And I really appreciate you sharing that with us. And Kelly, honestly, I feel like this is part one of probably a 4-part series for you and I on this. We need to do this again. I want to thank you so much for joining me. The fact that you need to stand out, you are the self-confessed underdog. It's all about the why. You have to be fit to compete. Knowledge is confidence. Know yourself. Fail first. Fail inexpensively. And actually, it's not failure. It's feedback. They were just some of the ones that I could scribble down as we chatted today. But Kelly, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. You're a total legend. I look forward to continuing this conversation. And thank you for being you.
Fab. Love to you all.
Oh, and thank all of you for joining us. There is so much conversation to carry on after today's episode. Kelly, total star. Please do keep on the conversation going. Subscribe, watch our podcast now from our fabulous studio, YouTube, Apple Music, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Leave a review. We love that. But please keep the conversation going. We are power_net on Insta, TikTok, and Twitter. We are power on LinkedIn and Facebook. And we are _power on YouTube. Find out everything that we're doing on our digital hub, wearepower.net. So much going on, so many phenomenal role models out there. Thank you for joining me. My name is Simone. This is the We Are Power podcast.